Welcome everyone to my Nefer build guide. Nefer is the newest 5-star character, a damage dealer who uses the Bloom reaction to increase her own damage. In this build guide, I will briefly go over Nefer's kit and give some context to building her, then go over her build options, including artifacts, main and substats, and lastly, weapons. Do keep in mind that everything in this video is highly subject to change. Information is only up to date as of the making of this video. And without further ado, Nefer is a 5-star Dendro character from Nod-Krai. She wields a catalyst, primarily scales on elemental mastery, and has a crit damage ascension bonus. Nefer is an on-field main DPS, and she primarily deals Lunar-Bloom damage. Nefer is somewhat unique in comparison to other characters who are played in Bloom teams, as instead of dealing damage through Bloom cores, Nefer stops Bloom cores from bursting, and instead consumes them to increase her own damage and ends up dealing the majority of the team's damage, where in contrast, Bloom teams usually deal damage through Bloom cores, with the damage being spread out amongst your different party members. Nefer's elemental skill will allow her to enter the Shadow Dance state. If you have at least one Verdant Dew, Nefer will be able to use a special charged attack which deals Dendro damage, and additionally deals damage that counts as direct Lunar-Bloom damage. A Verdant Dew can be granted every 2.5 seconds when dealing Lunar-Bloom damage. This stance will last for 9 seconds, or if 3 charged attacks have been unleashed during a single cast of Nefer's elemental skill. However, this skill can be used twice, allowing you to unleash up to 6 charged attacks. The damage of this charged attack will also be increased through her first passive, which requires the Ascendant Gleam effect, meaning that you would almost always want to play Nefer alongside another Nod-Krai character like Lauma or Aino. After using Nefer's elemental skill, any existing or future Dendro cores created will be converted into Seeds of Deceit. These Seeds of Deceit cannot burst, even through the Hyperbloom or Burgeon reaction. When Nefer uses a charged attack, she will consume nearby Seeds of Deceit and gain a Veil of Falsehood stack. This can stack up to 3 times, each stack granting a special 10% damage multiplier to her special charged attack, with the third stack additionally increasing Elemental Mastery. Nefer's burst will deal Dendro damage and consume all stacks of Veil of Falsehood to further increase the burst's damage. Nefer's second passive was recently changed to allow her to restore Verdant Dew faster. The impact of this change is positive, as the previous attack buff didn't really do anything, but this is mostly a quality of life upgrade. Being from Nod-Krai, Nefer will increase the party's moon sign level by 1, and also convert any Bloom reaction into Lunar-Bloom, increasing base damage based on her elemental mastery. With all of that out of the way, Nefer deals most of her damage through her elemental skill in the form of direct Lunar-Bloom damage. She does this by using a special charged attack during her elemental skill stance and consuming nearby Seeds of Deceit to increase her own damage. Dendro cores will be converted into Seeds of Deceit after using Nefer's elemental skill. These Seeds of Deceit do not burst. This means you won't be able to play Hyperbloom or Burgeon teams, as your Electro or Pyro character will simply be dealing damage instead of triggering the Bloom cores. Since Nefer stops Dendro cores from bursting and dealing damage, she compensates by dealing the majority of the team's damage. This means that her build will matter more than it would for other damage dealers, where other characters also contribute to a sizable portion of the team's damage, which isn't the case with Nefer. Nefer's damage mostly comes from direct Lunar-Bloom damage through her special charged attack during her elemental skill stance. Direct Lunar-Bloom damage is slightly different from regular Bloom or Lunar-Bloom damage, as it directly scales with the attack's multiplier, ignores enemy defense, and can crit. But it will still be affected by effects like Lunar-Bloom damage bonus, elemental mastery, and enemy resistance. Nefer's attacks scale with both her attack stat and elemental mastery. However, building her for elemental mastery is much better, as the multipliers are greater, and Lunar-Bloom damage will still be affected by the Elemental Mastery bonus. Lunar-Bloom damage will still crit, and you would also want to invest into crit rate and crit damage. In terms of potential teams, since Nefer deals Lunar-Bloom damage, she would prefer party members who can buff either Lunar-Bloom damage or Elemental Mastery. You would also need a Hydro character to create Dendro Cores in the first place. Having the Ascendant Gleam effect is also important, as that is what allows her to convert Dendro Cores to Seeds of Deceit. You'd also be gaining a Lunar Reaction damage bonus through your non-Nod-Krai party members with the Ascendant Gleam effect. Lauma increases Lunar-Bloom damage and even reduces Hydro and Dendro resistance, which makes a big impact on Nefer's damage. For your Hydro slot, you can use someone like Yelan, or in case you don't have Lauma and need a Nod-Krai character, you could use Aino, who even buffs Elemental Mastery through her constellations. You could also go for other Hydro characters like Singsho or a healer like Kokomi. The last slot can be filled with a Sustain or another Dendro or Hydro character like Nahida, or a support that buffs Elemental Mastery like Sucrose. For the purposes of this build guide, I will be basing calculations on a team that includes Nefer, Lauma, and a Hydro character. Before going over artifacts, Nefer's talent priority would be to first level her elemental skill, as her direct Lunar-Bloom damage scales with her elemental skill level. Then you could level up her burst, as it can deal a decent amount of damage. Normal attacks don't need to be leveled, as they don't really contribute to damage much, and you'd only be using them to apply on-field Dendro. As for Nefer's artifact options, her best in slot will likely be the Night of the Skies Unveiling set. This set's 2-piece bonus will increase Elemental Mastery by 80, and the 4-piece bonus will increase crit rate based on whether you have the Nascent Gleam or Ascendant Gleam effect, and grants 10% Lunar Reaction damage bonus for each effect. With Nefer, you'd want to have the Ascendant Gleam effect, granting 30% crit rate. This is going to be Nefer's best in slot by a decent margin compared to other options like Gilded Dreams. Even if you only have Nefer in your party, this set will still be better than other options. Marechaussee Hunter is also a decent option to use if you have Farina in your party. Moving on to main stats, let's first go over her energy recharge needs. Nefer's burst can deal a decent amount of damage, but it isn't really necessary to use. Nefer's burst costs 60 energy, and with only one other Dendro character, you would need around 130 to 150 energy to burst every rotation, with the requirement being even lower if you have 2 other Dendro characters. However, I would not recommend building or going after energy recharge rolls, as the difference bursting every rotation makes is marginal, and you might end up losing damage by going for more energy. Not to mention that you don't need a lot of energy recharge to burst every rotation in the right teams. As for main stats, for your Sands and Goblet, you would want Elemental Mastery. Going for attack on either would result in much lower damage, as she primarily scales on Elemental Mastery. For your Circlet, you'd still want crit rate or crit damage, as direct Lunar-Bloom damage can crit. An Elemental Mastery Circlet will deal less damage in most cases, but could be viable if you're using her signature weapon, which gives a lot of crit damage, and if you already have enough crit rate, you could consider an Elemental Mastery Circlet. As for substats, you would want to prioritize crit rate and crit damage than Elemental Mastery. Some energy recharge can be nice, and bonus attack rolls will technically still increase your damage. Moving on to weapons, Nefer's best in slot will be her signature weapon, Reliquary of Truth. This weapon has a base attack of 542 and increases crit damage by 88.2%. For its effect, crit rate will be increased by 8%, and Elemental Mastery will be increased by 80 for 12 seconds after using an elemental skill. Additionally, dealing Lunar-Bloom damage will increase crit damage by 24% for 4 seconds. When both the Elemental Mastery and crit damage increase effects are active, both effects will be further increased by 50%. Overall, this weapon grants up to a total of 124.2% crit damage, alongside 8% crit rate and up to 120 Elemental Mastery. Since Nefer deals most of the team's damage, an increase to her personal damage will be much more impactful than the increase a signature weapon provides on other damage dealers. But this doesn't make getting her signature weapon necessary, as the other options are also very strong and great on her. Other 5-star catalysts that increase Elemental Mastery can also be used, like Loma's signature weapon, which also increases Lunar-Bloom damage, or Sunny Morning Sleep In, Starcaller's Watch, or 1,000 Floating Dreams. You could also use a crit stat stick like Lost Prayer or a catalyst that provides 88% crit damage, but it would usually be slightly worse than the Nod-Krai craftable. The upcoming Wish-exclusive 4-star catalyst, Froststar, should be one of Nefer's best options, beating out other 5-star weapons at R5. This weapon will increase crit damage by 55.2% and increases Elemental Mastery by 72 after a charged attack hits an opponent, and further increases Elemental Mastery by 48 after using an elemental skill. At Refinement rank 5, this will be Nefer's next best option. The Nod-Krai craftable catalyst is going to be Nefer's best option obtainable for free. This weapon increases Elemental Mastery and Lunar-Bloom damage, with the effect further increasing if you have the Ascendant Gleam effect. At R5, this will be better than most other catalysts, beating out an R1 Froststar and the Battle Pass Sacrificial Jade at R1. The Battle Pass Catalyst. Sacrificial Jade is a decent option, as it provides 33% crit rate and increases Elemental Mastery. While this weapon is not going to be better than Froststar, it's still a decent option, and you could definitely use it if you already have it. The Widsith can be used as it increases crit damage and grants a random buff, one of these buffs being Elemental Mastery. However, the effect is random, and the uptime isn't great, but this could still be a decent option for single rotations. You could also use 4-star catalysts for their Elemental Mastery or crit stats, but the Nod-Krai craftable weapon is usually going to be a much better option. Overall, Nefer's weapon options are somewhat decent, as she has a great craftable option, and some of her best weapons are 4 stars, albeit banner exclusive, and battle pass weapons. And that's all from this build guide. Thank you for making it till the end, and thank you for watching.